Hi everyone, my name is Vinod Kumar Bovi and I'm the founder of Earth Mission. So welcome to CSRD Day 1, CSRD in practice. So we'll be discussing more about the basics about CSRD, what is CSRD and things like that. So without any further ado, let's get started. So the contents for today's session are unfolding CSRD. So what is CSRD and the timelines of CSRD and who should report CSRD? And what are ESRS standards? So what is ESRS and what are ESRS standards? And the third topic would be EFRAG. So what is EFRAG? And also CSRD in relation to other regulatory frameworks. So which means CSRD has come into picture from 2025 onwards, where large corporations needs to do their CSRD reporting on 2024 data. But before CSRD, there were already large corporations who were doing their sustainability reporting based on different frameworks. For example, like GRI, Global Reporting Initiative. So we'll also see how CSRD is in relation to those regulatory frameworks. So yeah. A little bit about me. Like I mentioned, my name is Vinod Kumar Bovi, and I'm the founder of Earth Mission. So Earth Mission is a SaaS all-in-one platform for CSRD reporting and carbon management, which is powered by AI agents. So right now we are in the MVP phase and working on building the platform. And I've got around 10 years of experience working in AI, data, and sustainability domains. Yeah, let's start with unfolding CSRD. So it's always interesting to unfold these abbreviations to get to know the real definition behind them. So what is a CSRD? So the full form of CSRD is nothing but the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. I think this is something you already know. But what is it? It's a piece of legislation. So very important. I'm just rounding it down. So it's a legislation developed by European Union. So EU Commission in this case. So whenever we talk about CSRD, we need to understand that it's a legislation developed by EU Commission. And what is ESRS? The European Sustainability Reporting, sorry, Regulatory Standards. So this is the abbreviation for that, European Sustainability Regulatory Standards. So what does this do? How is in relation with CSRD? So ESRS provide details on what needs to be done and in which manner. So you can think it like a framework. So ESRS is a framework to do a CSRD reporting. So this framework has what needs to be included in the report, in which manner, what is the order, the topics, subtopics, and the cross-cutting topical standards and things like that. We will also unfold them in later stage of the session. And the third one is EFRAG. So EFRAG is a private association which is established in 2001, mainly to serve public interest, and they have extended their mission in 2022, providing technical advice to the European Commission in the form of draft ESRS. So the ESRS draft version was actually prepared by EFRAG team, provided the advice to the European Commission, and they're also responsible for doing a draft amendments to these standards, right? So you can also look at their website to know more about EFRAG, but basically it's a group of people like a private association who is working in close with the European Commission, providing technical advice. And they were basically behind the CSRD reporting and defining the ESRS framework as well. So I hope with these definitions now you have a better understanding about the main aspects. But when we try to unfold other aspects, you will also get a clear understanding. So CSRD reporting eligibility criteria. So like I mentioned in the index, so who should do the CSRD reporting? So mainly there are three aspects to this. So the first one is large companies. So there is also a meeting criteria. So large companies who meet at least two of the following things. So the first one is the net turnover of 50 million or more, or the total assets of the organization is at least 25 million. And the third one is if a company having an average of 250 or more employees during the financial year. So if either of any of these two, if any of these two meet for large companies, so they are eligible for doing a CSRD report, and it is mandatory for them to do it from 2025, which is the current year onwards. And the second one is a listed SMEs. So small, medium enterprises, right? The small and medium enterprises listed on regulated markets, though they have more time to comply. So I also have like a timeline sheet in the next slide. We'll be also seeing that. But this is the second criteria. And the third one is non-EU companies. As you know, CSRD is mainly applicable for EU region and all the companies within EU. But there is also a clause that for non-EU companies with a significant activity in EU, so let's say the company head office is somewhere in US or in China or India, but they also have significant activity in the EU region. and they have like a net turnover above 150 million in the EU. So they are also eligible for doing a CSRD. So this is basically the timeline for CSRD reporting. So you can also see, like I mentioned, that it starts with 2025, but they have to report from 2024 data onwards. So companies already reporting under NFRD. So don't worry about NFRD. We'll also discuss what NFRD is. So it's also, sorry for that. So we will also see that in the coming slides what NFRD is, how CSRD is in relation with NFRD. And other large companies, you see they are also applicable to do CSRD reporting in 2025, and the listed SMEs and except micro undertakings, they have time till 2027, but they need to already start getting data for 25. And non-EU companies with branches and subsidiaries, they have time till 29. But you can also see the abbreviations for each and everything in line with this. But if I have to also understand a little bit that why CSRD has been introduced, it's also very interesting because if you know what EU Green Deal is, so basically the plan for EU Green Deal is to become climate neutral and pollution free by 2050. And to achieve that, one of the main initiative was to introduce CSRD reporting. One of the initiatives. There are also other initiatives, but CSRD is also one of the initiatives. So when it comes to CSRD and ESRS, the structure mainly divides into two things. So there are total 12 topics, but if you have to divide those 12 topics into two different categories. So the first one is a cross-cutting standard. So we are talking about ESRS now. So now we are getting into already content, right? So what is cross-cutting standards? So these are two documents, and there is a topical standards. These are 10 documents. So the cross-cutting standards, these define the logic behind the reporting standards. So they mainly define the logic and also prescribe general disclosure requirements, right? So, and what are the topical standards? So these are mainly 10 documents or 10 standards. These define specific disclosure requirements for different sustainability areas. So out of these 10, you have environmental with 5 topics, social with 4 topics, and governance with 1 topic standard. But we will also unfold them in the next slide. But try to understand that these are divided into 12 topics where cross-cutting standards are 2 and topical standards are 10. So this makes total 12, but each has a different purpose. Yeah, mainly this is the structure which I was also explaining in the previous slide. So like I said, cross-cutting standards. So you have ESRS 1. We know what is ESRS because we've seen the definition. It's a framework. So ESRS 1 is also known as a general requirements. And then you have ESRS 2, which is a general disclosure. So these are two cross-cutting standards. These are applicable for the entire 10 topical standards. So you can see this is like basically a horizontal line, which is applicable for this whole 10 topical standards, because these are also called cross cutting standards because they are like horizontal. Whereas the topical standards, so you have for ESG, E stands for environment, social, and governance. So for each topic, you have like subtopics in this case. So for E, you have ESRS 1. E1, we call it ESRS E1. So that's also the code which is very important to consider, and ESRS S1, which comes under social, and ESRS G1, which comes under governance. So for instance, in this case, ESRS E1 is climate change, ESRS E2 is pollution, ESRS E3 is water and marine resources, E4 is biodiversity and ecosystems, E5 is resource use and circular economy. Similarly, for S1 is workforce, own workforce, S2 is workers in the value chain, S3 is affected communities, S4 is consumers and end users, also very important because everyone is either providing a product or providing a service, which means you have consumers and end users. So it is also very much applicable for most of the organizations because every organization has a value supply chain, like an upstream, downstream, and their own operations. But we will also discuss them in detail in the coming sessions. And then you have ESRS G1, which is business conduct. So this is also very important, that how you're doing your business, right? So in terms of like having certain policies for whistleblowers and for your own staff, but we will also unfold that. I hope the structure is clear. You don't have to memorize this, but this is really important when it comes to you doing a double materiality assessment. So that is always the first stepping stone uh, to get started with CSRD reporting. And like I mentioned, CSRD was not the first thing which came in place for sustainability reporting. There were also like other regulatory frameworks. There was a voluntary reporting framework in the past where large corporations were already doing that. But let's try to understand the CSRD in relation to these other regulatory frameworks. The first one goes with is a GRI. So this is also one of the very famous reporting initiative which provides comprehensive set of standards for sustainability reporting. So I would say CSRD was an extension which built on top of GRI. So if the organizations are already doing a global reporting initiative, so for them starting with CSRD shouldn't be really difficult, because for them it's also more in streamlining manner, because they already know they have the process in place, they've already gathered the data, they've been doing that from a couple of years, so they know the format, they know the structure. Whereas CSRD is also similar to GRI, but which extends on top of GRI with certain rules and processes in place. So for them it should be easy in doing. And the other one is EU taxonomy. So it's a classification system establishing which economic activities are environmentally sustainable in the EU. So this is also part of the EU Green Deal. So there is a flow which we are going to also see in the next slide. And then the EU Green Deal are very important. The set of policies aim to making the EU climate neutral by 2050. So CSRD is part of the EU Green Deal, because there are certain steps in place to achieve climate neutral by 2050, and this is the aim of EU and all the organizations and countries and member states of EU, and for to achieve this EU Green Deal, people started doing the CSRD reporting, and there are certain frameworks in place. Okay? And what is NFRD? The Non-Financial Reporting Directive. So this requires large companies to disclose information on environmental and social matters. So there used to be a huge discussion and debate in the past that you have so many regulatory frameworks which could be quite redundant, but they also serve different purpose as well. So in this case, NFRD is mainly to disclose information on environmental social matters. But with CSRD coming into picture right now, everyone is focusing more on the CSRD part. And there is another one which is called SFDR, the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, which also mandates disclosure of sustainability risks in financial services, right? So NFRD is mainly on the environmental and social matters, whereas SFDR is mainly on the risks in the financial services. So if you already know, we are already getting slowly into a double materiality assessment, which you have to do a dual materiality assessment, which is the impact of financial part and also impact on the environment. But we will also look at it in detail in the coming sessions. And then finally, you have CSRD, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, which expands and standardizes the sustainability reporting requirements in the EU, which we've also seen that. So then a little bit of a pictorial diagram to understand a little better about the EU Green Deal. So like I said, EU Green Deal is the newest growth strategy of the EU. It consists of set of policies which were initiated by the European Commission. The aim of EU Green Deal is to make EU climate neutral and deliver pollution-free environment by 2050. And it's a very good thing, because if you know the Paris Agreement and the Paris Alignment, we have a target of limiting our temperature by 1.5 degree centigrade below, right, by 2030. And majority of the companies and the nations have pledged for Paris Agreement. But this comes in extension to that. So whenever we are doing our emission reporting, we also have to take this into account. We have to do a reporting for 2030, right? So you have a baseline reporting, and you also have to do a future reporting, considering in which sector you belong to, which is for 2030 and which is for 2050 as well, to make sure that you have a net zero goal in your organization. But we'll also look that into detail in the coming session. So if you look at the EU Green Deal, so it's an EU action plan on financing sustainable growth, right? And then you have a EU taxonomy, which we also discussed. So it's mainly used for preventing greenwashing. Sets of definition of taxonomy aligned activities for NFRD, CSRD, and SFDR, like a taxonomy alignment. And large public interest companies like 500 employees, including listed companies, banks, and insurance companies. If you look at EU taxonomy, that kind of divides into different reporting frameworks. So the NFRD, and then which also has an amend, which is CSRD, and then you also have a SFDR. But this is just good to know basis. But there are more details if we get into these frameworks. But for us, the main goal of the session is to understand more about CSRD and how it is in related with other directives and the frameworks. So just concluding that CSRD is a legislation introduced by the EU Commission for all the EU member states to achieve the EU Green Deal. And there is a certain criteria and the timeline for set of organizations when to start doing the reporting. And there's certain framework which is called ESRS. And using the framework, people have to, first identify the topics using DMA, and based on that, they have to do their CSRD reporting. And there is also a specific format to do the CSRD reporting, which is XBRL, like data tagging format. We'll also unfold that in the coming sessions. But yeah, I think with that note, I would like to conclude this session. I hope it was helpful and you learned something with this. So if you've got any questions, so please free to comment in the comment section, and you can also reach to me with vinodbovi@artemission.com. So here at Artemission, we are trying to simplify the complex CSRD into easier and faster using AI. But I'll also disclose more details about the platform and how to use the platform, the free subscription and the paid subscription, all these kinds of details in the coming sessions. So feel free to drop me a text, or you can also connect me in LinkedIn to know more details about this. Thank you, everyone.